Hey guys, welcome to the Jerry Rigger channel. In today's video, we're going to upgrade the memory in this laptop. An HP laptop. It still has the original display sticker on it. It only came with 8 gigabytes memory. We need a little bit more than that in there, so we're gonna upgrade it. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and let's get started. Okay, so the first thing I did is I typed in my, the computer in the search down there, and then of course when the little computer icon comes up, I right-clicked on it and went down to Properties. That'll take me to the settings screen. Once I get into settings, then I can kind of scroll down to About on the left-hand side, the scroll bar in the middle there. And then I can see what version of Windows I'm in by scrolling down a little bit on the right. This is Windows 10 home version, which is good, but I also need to make sure that it's loaded as a 64-bit. If it's loaded as a 32-bit, it'll only allow me to use 4 gig of memory. So we want to make sure it's loaded as 64-bit. The same goes with Windows 7. Windows 7 loaded as 32-bit will only allow you to use 4 gig of memory as well. Well, which actually brings up a good point, because you want to make sure, I mean, let's say you wanted to say you want to add 256 to this computer. Windows 10 Home Edition only handles 128. So it wouldn't do me any good. I could add 256 to it, but it would only use 128 of it. So you can go just like Google. I think I Googled maximum memory Windows, and it brought me right to the Microsoft page that had all the different Windows versions and what they were capable of, what the operating system for those versions was capable of. So it's always a good idea to do that before you just try and throw as much computer memory in there as possible. Check your versions, see how much the maximum your Windows version will allow before you spend a bunch of money that ends up getting wasted. And while I'm in here, I'm going to take note of how much RAM is installed. I took this picture after I installed the RAM, so it says 40. It would have said 8 before I started. I didn't think to take a picture of it before I started, but you also want to see where it says usable. You want to make sure that those are close to the same. If it says 4 is usable, well, then that might be your issue. For some reason, it's only using 4 gig of your, in this case, 40 gigabyte RAM. That's again a big sign that you're loaded as a 32-bit instead of a 64-bit, or something is limiting your memory, and you got to resolve that issue. All right, another thing, if your computer's just running slow, before you add memory, you might want to take a look at Task Manager. You can get there by just hitting Control-Alt-Delete and then choosing Task Manager from the menu. If your memory is at 100%, okay, yeah, you might need more memory. If it's at 15, 18, 20%, then maybe memory is not your problem. Take a look at some of these other things. It could be that your hard drive is not fast enough. Platter drives run a lot slower than your solid state drives. Could be a GPU issue where your memory or your graphics card you know, isn't running fast enough. You know, there could be other reasons besides just memory that's causing your computer to run slow. Just, you know, good idea to take a look at that before you spend money on more memory. Now with my computer, I lucked out. It still had the original label on it. So I was able to just tell right from the label. It had DDR4 memory, and that you know, it had the model number there as well. But sometimes your only option is, you know, if you don't know the model number of the computer, where you can just look it up, just to open it up and see what it's got in it. Of course, here the label's on the back side of this DDR4 memory here. I would have had to pop this out just to see what kind of memory was in it. Sometimes that's your only option, though. But while you got it open, you can tell how many slots are in it. So that's a good thing. You know, there's no point in ordering, you know, 264 bits to get you know, chips or sticks to get, you know, 128 gigabytes, and then open up here and you find out you've only got one slot. That wouldn't do you any good. And of course, you know, these bigger computers tend to have at least 2 slots, but some of the, you know, once you get, you know, the smaller computer you got, the more likely you're going to have just 1 slot. So, you know, keep that in mind as well when you're ordering your memory. You know, make sure you have, you know, enough space for it. All right, so in this particular computer, there's actually only one screw that holds the CD-ROM, and once I take this screw out here, I'll be able to lift this or pull this CD-ROM right out. Just that one screw right there holds it in place. All right, so I've got to remove all the screws that are visible. Once I get those removed, then I've got to lift up the rubber strip, try and get it up with the tape if possible, because there's screws underneath this rubber strip that I've got to get to. The thing about these rubber strips is they don't like to stick once you put them back on, even if you try and, you know, keep the you know, double-sided tape with it. So you might have to replace the double-sided tape when you go to put these back on. But you got to pull it. There's no way around it. You got to lift this up just to get to the screws that are underneath it. You know, and one thing to consider before you open this thing up, there is a battery in this. So even with it unplugged and even with the power off, there is still electricity inside this. So just keep that in mind. You know, you don't want to rub your screwdriver across the wrong leads or touch a capacitor that might shock you. Just something to be aware of. All right, so I got all the screws out. Now I'm going to try and pry this apart. You're better off not using a screwdriver to pry this if you can't. It will mar up the plastic if you do. You know, or if you have to use something, maybe use something plastic to pry it with if you can. Something a little less likely to mar up the plastic you're working on. But you know, another thing to mention before you even open up your computer, there's always the issue of static. You know, if you're somebody who does a lot of things that create static, you can get static just walking across carpet. You know, build up. So it's always a good idea. I mean, if you have a static strap, hey, you know, it's always a good idea to use that. But if you don't, one of the little tricks that I've learned is I'll go touch like a metal faucet. It's got a good ground to it, and that'll, you know, kind of dissipate any static. Usually, the static can kill these chips. So you just want to be careful. Now, again, I've never worried too much about the static, but they can zap them. Big mistake I see a lot of times, people don't seat these all the way in. They'll just put them like, they look like they're seated. They put them in like this, and then they snap them down, and as, see how you can see the metal. See how you see the metal on the one I just put in, but you don't see any, the gold leads on the other one. It's because it's not in all the way. You really gotta, double check, make sure they're seated all the way in. Like that. There you go. And now snap it all the way in. And you'll tell those little grooves on the side will snap into place. Alright, so we got both chips in. We're going to put the cover back on. Some of the stuff is loose, and it can come loose on you while you're testing. So I'm just going to flip it over, put a couple screws in it for the testing. These two that hold the hard drive and the CD-ROM are always good ones to put back in. Alright, so once I get into settings, then I go to the bottom left there and click on About. Once that shows up, it'll show me how much RAM is installed. And from there, it's just a matter of putting the screws back in. Alright, so I'm going to try and just go ahead and stick these back on. Chances are they're going to fall off in a day or two. Ideally, I need to probably go to the hardware store, get some double-sided tape. They sell it in the window section for, putting plastic over your windows during the winter, stuff like that. But like I said, I'm going to just try and re-stick these back on for now. Best way to do it would probably be to clean both the rubber side and the plastic side with alcohol and use some new tape to get it to stick well. But like I say, I'm just going to stick it back on for now. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this episode of the Jerry Rigger channel. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.